Hello everyone! I have always wanted to react to a video comparing Romania to another country, so this is perfect. This video is about comparing Romania to Belarus, a country that is still somewhat under Russia's thumb, right? They're still under Russia's power, essentially. Where Romania, which was once an ally to Russia, has since split and is now working on their own and working with the European Union, actually. But it will be really interesting to see how these two countries compare. One a Russian state, essentially like a Russian run state, and one a European Union run state. So let's get started. This is, I'm guessing, an awesome video. We've got 10 minutes, so stick around with me here. Let's go. Romania's incredible rise. Let's see.
To be a bit different than our usual style, because we're going to do an experiment and look at two countries that were part of the Soviet bloc, but developed in pretty much two completely different ways. First, we have Belarus. That's a country of about 9 million people that borders Russia and the EU. Its GDP per capita is not that high either, just over 8,000.
So this is what we need to take everything into note here. There's 9.1 million people in Belarus. We'll see a little bit different number in Romania for sure.
USD, and its economy has pretty much stagnated for years. And when it comes to economic freedom, it's ranked 152nd in the world. Then
that guy right there. Oh, let me go back.
When it comes to economic freedom, it's ranked 152nd.
This guy right here behind my face is like the president of Belarus, and he has been in power forever and no one really likes him, but somehow he still keeps getting voted in. Do you think that's a president? I don't know.
In the world. Then we have Romania with about 19 million people and a GDP per capita of just over 20,000 USD.
So 19 million people, but 20,000 USD. That's a lot better.
And when it comes to the economic freedom ranking, Romania sits in 51st. But how did it end up like this? Because funnily enough, in 1990, Romania's GDP per capita was actually lower than Belarus's.
Whoa.
So, in this video, let's rewind back to 1990 to see
So in 25 years, Romania has flipped the script. I'm guessing this will be a huge part because of the European Union influence, but let's see.
Exactly what happened. Basically, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Europe's map changed drastically. A whole bunch of new countries appeared, and across the region, nations were racing to swap communism for capitalism. Economists called it shock therapy, and for many, it really was a shock. If we zoom into Romania, the transition started with a bang. Quite literally, actually, because its dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, and his wife were executed on live TV on Christmas Day 1989. What followed was absolute chaos. Over 250% inflation, Romanian industry halved, and corruption pretty much everywhere. Belarus, though, took a very different path, a much calmer one, at least on the surface. It declared independence in 1991 without bloodshed. But democracy flickered out quickly. Factories collapsed and production fell by 30%. Corruption spread and inflation soared past 1,000%. So yeah, it's fair to say that both countries came out of the breakup in a very rough shape. In 1994, though, Alexander Lukashenko rose to power in Belarus.
Okay, so 1994. So this dude has been in power essentially for 31 years? Oh, that's crazy.
He ran as an anti-corruption outsider, promising to end the pain of economic reforms that brought only hardship. Once elected, he wasted no time either. He dissolved the parliament, rewrote the constitution, and rolled back most market reforms. And the result? A tightly controlled economy. Prices were fixed, industry stayed state-owned, and the government pulled the strings. Inflation cooled, but lingered around 50% by the late 90s, and GDP crept up by 2 to 4% a year, depending on cheap Russian oil and gas. Still though, credit where credit is due. Poverty fell, and on the surface things seemed pretty stable. Meanwhile, Romania took a different turn. It got EU candidate status in 1995, and real reform kicked in a year later under the new president Emil Constantinescu. Price liberalization, mass privatization, and the full shock therapy package. It hurt. GDP per capita suffered massively in 1997, and inflation shot past 150%. But you have to say, the pain paid off. The economy really stabilized, and investors started showing up, drawn by Romania's new pro-Western direction. As the millennium began, Belarus was struggling hard. By 2000, GDP per capita and
Very
foreign
interesting.
investment had hit record lows. The country's tightly controlled economy was really starting to show cracks, and the momentum of the early 90s was pretty much gone. At the same time, though, talks of a formal union with Russia resurfaced, promising closer political economic integration under the so-called Union State. Now, for all of us living in 2025, we know how that turned out. Anyway, Romania back then wasn't exactly thriving either, though, but there were two massive differences. First, its economy was simply far more open. And second, Romania had a clear goal: joining the European Union.
Yep.
That meant sweeping reforms, cleaning up the judiciary, and
Okay, so 2007 is when they joined the EU. I'm sure he'll say this, but I'm guessing this is where you'll see like the huge change in the countries.
tackling, most importantly, corruption. And by 2004, this effort was really starting to show. Romania was closing EU negotiation chapters at warp speed, and the economy took off. Between 2004 and 2008, growth averaged a record 8% per year. Inflation cooled,
Wow.
confidence returned, and in 2007, Romania officially joined the EU, hitting over 11% of growth that year.
That growth in between like 2020 or 2003 all the way up to 2008, that's like crazy. I thought it was mostly going to be right here in 2007. That proves me wrong.
And attracting record levels of investment. Now, to be fair, Belarus also had a brief upswing around
I
then,
didn't know
and
that.
that was thanks to mostly cheap Russian energy subsidies. But then came the global financial crisis, and that really threw a spanner in the works. The crisis, caused by the American housing market, struck Romania
Yeah, our
severely.
bad.
GDP contracted by 5.5% in 2009 and fell a further 3.9% in 2010. And to be honest, I remember these days. It wasn't just Romania. All European countries were struggling. But to help, the EU did loan roughly 20 billion euros to Romania in 2009. And these funds were an attempt to finance large-scale infrastructure and development projects to
Holy
cushion the
cow.
downturn. And, among many other measures, it worked. By 2011, the economy finally began to rebound. Basically, the confidence was back, paving the way for a new phase of growth that would send Romania soaring through the 2010s. Belarus
So right there where I was basically when I was in Romania from 2013 to 2015. So I kind of saw it in that lull. And then pretty much once I went back to America's, sorry, Romania, I wasn't great for you or whatever. But ever since then, you've been crushing it.
meanwhile struggled on. In May 2011, the government devalued the ruble by 36%.
Which looking at these trends, they're not too dissimilar, right? You look at those trend lines, they're not too dissimilar. And that's pretty promising, I would say. This is where it gets wonky. 2015, look at how much bigger of a dip that is than Romania's. And then a much bigger rise from Romania, where this is a much more steady rise. That's pretty wild.
Sparking a sudden currency crisis. And then Russia invaded Crimea. And since the Russian and Belarusian economies were pretty much tied together, Belarus was stuck.
That makes
Unlike
sense.
Romania, Belarus did not see a rebound in foreign investment, and the economy remained heavily dependent on Russian subsidies, leaving it vulnerable to external shocks. If we fast forward to today, 2025, Romania is honestly thriving, at least in comparison to Belarus. Social conditions tell the very same story. The median monthly income is roughly $1,854 in Romania versus $1,000 in Belarus.
Which I can't imagine. 1,849 still isn't like a lot of money, but it can get by for sure. In Romania, you can get by. $1,000 feels like nothing. Like, that is so shocking.
Russian-aligned countries have had an overall tough time compared to more pro-European democracies. When countries like Poland, Romania, and Hungary began moving towards EU membership, everything pretty much started to change.
Yeah.
Politically, they had to meet what's called the Copenhagen criteria, meaning stronger democracy, rule of law, and anti-corruption measures. Economically, they adopted Western-style market systems, opening up trade and competition. And then, of course, the EU single market, which was a complete game changer. Instead of trading within the old Soviet Union, these countries suddenly had access to over 500 million consumers all across Europe.
That's
Foreign
crazy.
money poured in, not just from private companies, but from the EU itself too. This is what the EU calls structural and cohesion funds. Billions of euros were invested in highways, airports, and modern infrastructure. Poland alone
Wow.
received over 100 billion euros between 2007 and 2020. And corruption levels.
Poland got the bag from Europe. That makes sense why both of these economies, like both Poland and Romania, have done a lot better in recent years. They've gotten bags. That's crazy.
Levels also improved. In Romania, for example, it now scores 45 out of 100 compared to Belarus's 33. I mean, that's still far from perfect, but at least it's a clear shift in the right direction. And lastly, on top of all that, joining NATO and aligning with the US gave investors even more confidence. And the results of these reforms speak for themselves. But it has to be said, as many Romanians are probably thinking while watching this video, Romania definitely isn't all sunshine and flowers. About 1 in 4 Romanians, roughly 24% of the population, is still at risk of poverty or social exclusion. That's one of the worst rates in the European Union. But, and this really is key, even with all of those challenges, Romania is still miles ahead of Belarus. Its economy is stronger, its people are freer, and its institutions far more integrated with the West. In short, Romania might be struggling inside the EU, but it's crushing Belarus outside of it. Now, let's zoom out and look across all of Eastern Europe and plot the...
This will be sweet. And since I'm a finance guy, this has been like so cool for me. And like one of the things that I want to help do, I want to help better the lives of Romanians somehow. I want to figure out how we can get more tourism or get more money into Romania without ruining the charm and allure of Romania, right? The nature, the beauty, the beautiful cities, the clean streets, like stuff like that really is like a huge draw to Romania. And this is one thing like I need to think more about and think of how I can do better at promoting Romania and making it a better place for people to come. I'll work on it, I promise, but this has been so cool for me to see the financial side. This is so awesome.
These countries on a graph next to Belarus and Romania.
Whoa,
as you can see,
Czech
Poland,
Republic.
Czechia, and Estonia have gone even
Czechia.
further ahead. Sure, they're not the same level as France or Germany yet, but the direction is clear. Here's my opinion. When Eastern European countries do well, Europe as a whole does well. Investment in the East isn't some act of charity, it's a strategic investment. Think of it this way. If Marseille becomes richer, Paris benefits. And every French person understands this.
Yep.
Investing in poorer regions helps the whole country grow. The only difference between that mindset at a national level and at a European level is simply the scale. The logic is exactly the same. Because prosperity spreads. A wealthier Romania doesn't just lift up Romania. It creates new demand for German machinery, Italian design, French services, and Dutch logistics. Rising incomes in the East translates to a stronger consumer base for European products. And the more we grow together, the more competitive and resilient we all become. And lastly, there's a geopolitical edge too. Supporting Eastern Europe keeps millions aligned with the European project. Millions of citizens in our sphere of influence, not in someone else's. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to support us...
Okay, he's ending his thoughts right there. Yeah, I think almost the exact same thing, right? Like, not only does, like, if you can build up Romania, provide better roads, provide better tourism, provide more things, do you get more services, more imports, more exports throughout the countries, you also get it from other countries that are surrounding. Turkey will go to Romania, Turkish people will go to Romania more. Some Russians will go, Americans will go, just more tourism will come into Romania, and that will feed throughout Europe as well. So investment into Europe, into these Eastern blocs or these Eastern countries, it's an investment in Europe itself. And it's so cool to see how different like Romania really could be. Like if it would have stayed more closely tied to Russia, you could see how Romania or Moldova probably even in a worse spot than Romania, but Romania could be in that same spot as Belarus basically. So super awesome that Romania has joined the EU. It has been so great for them, I think. There's a lot of downfalls, obviously, but in the grand scheme of things, it has helped out a little bit. And there are some benefits and some downsides, obviously, but I believe that the EU side was the better side to choose from this, just from seeing these financials. So thanks for watching. If you do love Bolnarescu TV, want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. It would be much appreciated. I am trying to get my family, my two beautiful kids and my wife, back to Romania for December 2026 to go watch all of the Christmas stuff, to go promote it. So thank you guys. Hopefully you have a great day. Love you. Peace.